Hi everyone, my name is Debanjana Roy, and I'm a homemaker and a mom of a cute baby boy who is presently 7 months old, and his name is Shivansh. This is my first YouTube video, and I was just surfing through, and I realized that there's not a lot of information regarding pregnancy, complications of pregnancy in the net. So I had a very unusual pregnancy situation, and I didn't see a lot of informative videos on that. So I thought, why not help a few moms, out, by sharing my story. So the complication that I had in my pregnancy is called cholestasis of pregnancy. Okay, so for those for whom it's a information for the first time, let me explain what it is. So what happens is that when you excretion, to be in layman's language, when you're the excretion that you're supposed to throw out through your poop doesn't go out properly, and at some point the poisonous stuff get mixed in your blood, and in the process dilutes gets into your womb and into your baby's blood, and it can have fatal consequences. So it usually starts with a liver dysfunction, as in, if you test your liver function test, if you see your liver counts is very high, that's how doctor starts to look at it. But the sad story is that there's not a lot of options at this point regarding the cholestasis of pregnancy, as in there's not a lot of tests that are done. I lived in United States of America when I was going through my pregnancy, and apparently it seems that not a lot of labs do the testing. So the test results are sent the test reports, blood work is sent to San Francisco, and that's where the reporting happens, and it takes around 7 days time to kind of bring in the reports, and it can be very critical because anyways, first thing first, I'll tell you how my pregnancy was, and then I'll proceed to what happened. So when I got pregnant, I was around 36 years old, which was quite old for conceiving, and I was a little nervous, so we went through all our genetic testings and all the additional testings that was required to kind of make sure that the baby was fine. I went for additional counseling and additional help, and other tests and everything. I used to go for weekly ultrasounds, and apparently everything was going well till my 30th week. So just to give you a brief about my situation, was I always had a little bit of a liver situation. My liver function test is never very good. I mean, it's not that bad. It would be around 45, 35. But it's kind of borderline. So when I conceived in the 12th or 14th week itself, I consulted my doctor, and she ran those tests, and the reports came in fine. So which was great. So then what happened was that around the 30th week, I, thank God for it, I had my annual checkup scheduled. So I was in two minds whether, I should do the annual checkup at this point, because, everything is a little elevated when you're pregnant and you don't get the proper blood work. So that's how but I still decided to go for it, and I got the tests done. So as predicted, some of the reports were high, like cholesterol was expected to be high and a few things. But what was alarming was the liver function test. So back in in the third month when I had done the testing, it was like 26 or something. And then in the 6th or 7th month, it had jumped to like 100. Which was scary. So I kind of brought it to the notice of my gynecologist, and usually what I read from the net is that usually gynecologists don't pay much heed to it, because at this point of your pregnancy, things are pretty elevated at all levels, so people don't take it so seriously. Anyways, thanks to my doctor, who was a senior doctor, and he's a risk specialist any which ways, so he kind of took it seriously, and he ran the tests again with me. And as it seems that the week after that, the numbers had jumped from 100 to 150, so that was alarming. So my doctor's office nicely contacted me and said that, this doesn't look really, there's nothing to worry about, I'm sure, but let's not just take this casually, let's just go and see a gastroenterologist. So I kind of agreed, but then in the States, it's very hard to get a doctor's appointment short notice. So the doctor kind of referred me to a doctor, and somehow she fit me in. She again ran a bunch of tests, and again the figures jumped. We kind of ran a few things, like if I was having too much of omega-3, or if I was kind of taking too much of vitamin D, stuff like that. And we kind of discussed, and initially the doctor was kind of convinced, because the rest of the reports were looking fine. So the doctor decided that, okay, so I think we're good, but we'll still continue to monitor this. So we continued to monitor, and it seems the week after that, it again increased to 250. So that's when it was scary. So that's when, the doctor kind of suggested that I check the cholesterol. In fact, they did not suggest it. They kind of just decided to run those tests with me. They just told me that they were just, like, we didn't have a formal discussion on, that they were suspecting that I might be having this. Because I guess they didn't want to, unnecessarily scare a pregnant woman. So whatever the case was, they didn't discuss it with me initially. They just ran those tests with me, and they just gave me a bunch of blood work, and I just went and got them done. In the meantime, I had a sister who had a very similar track. And at some point, she developed the cholestasis of pregnancy, and she had to do an emergency surgery. So I was kind of aware of the symptoms. And I think my reports came back on so what happened was, I gave the test on a Sunday or a Monday, I think Monday, yeah. And the reports were due to come the next Monday, I think, yeah. So around Tuesday, Wednesday, I kind of started feeling that, my hands were itching, like the palms of my hand was itching a little. My feet was itching a little. However, my bowel movements were fine. There was no notable color change in my poop. And the other symptom I had was that my baby was suddenly from a 45-50 percentile, my baby kind of dropped to 30 percentile, and so doctors were like, you're not eating well, and which was true. I was not eating well. I was not able to eat. I was having a lot of nausea problems, like right from the moment I conceived. Right from the moment I conceived, I had been plagued with nausea. Anyways, so to cut the story short, I was already reading symptoms, and the more I read, the more scared I got, because there were very few positive stories. Most of them were traumatic stories, where it was too late and the baby was lost, and the doctor delayed it, and the doctor didn't want to commit the surgery, and or they did not realize it, or they did not pay heed to it. I was getting scared by every minute. But however, my itching was not that bad, so I was kind of relieved that maybe I'm good, I'm in the safe zone. Maybe I've just started, and by the time I was on my 35th week by then, like I was just ending my 35th week. So I was like, I'm on borderline, so worst case I'll get surgery done and all that stuff. So after that, what happened was, on a Tuesday I had my doctor's appointment, and I guess that is the day when the reports came back. So I just got a call from the gastroenterologist office, and they just said that your reports came, and we have already reported them to your gynecologist, and they'll prescribe the required medicine, something on those lines, and they hang up. And I was like, okay, so we're good, there is no problem, otherwise they would have told me. And I visited the doctor, and the moment I got in and I came face to face with my nurse, she was like, so what did they say? And I knew something was not right. So anyways, I said, no, they said nothing. They said that you guys are going to tell me what. And they were like, oh my God, okay, we need to talk. And then they made me wait. And I waited and waited and waited. And nobody came. So just to give you a brief on why I waited so long was because I go for a high-risk doctor, and because he's like a single doctor and he has a ginormous amount of patients. So what happens is the nurses take care of the patients until the 36th week, and they bring in the doctor if there's any requirement. Otherwise, the nurses handle the patients, and then the doctor takes over from the 36th week. And I was due for my appointment around that time. So the reason they were making me wait was because they were trying to reach out to the doctor who was in the hospital doing a surgery to kind of understand how to go about my case. So any which ways, in the meantime, I tried to reach out. My husband who was busy at work, so didn't pick up my phone. Anyways, so he must have not anticipated the situation. So anyways, then finally the nurse came in, and then she was like, you know what, I'll break it to you is that your numbers look high. You are at 46 right now, and that's quite high. By the time the number goes to 100, the baby actually dies in the womb. She didn't tell me that, but I had already researched and already found that out, that by the time you're 100, the chances of the baby, God forbid, chances of the baby surviving is like really bad. So that kind of freaked me out, because the test happened like a week back, and I was sitting there, and by the numbers that was doubling in my liver function test, I'm assuming that these numbers would double too. So then she said that what we've decided is we'll take you to the surgery room day after tomorrow. So we'll push you an injection to kind of make your lungs safe, and to make the baby's lungs grow. I mean by the 35th week the lungs should be pretty much ready, but then to be for safety, we'll just inject that so that the lungs kind of pick up, and then day after tomorrow we'll put another one, and then we'll take you for surgery. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. Because I was mentally prepared for like another 4 weeks, because until then, apart from the liver function tests and the elevation in my liver function test count, there was no symptoms. I was slightly itching, and I was not able to eat because of nausea, and that was something that was happening from the beginning of my pregnancy. So I didn't think much about the consequences. So that was like a shock after shock after shock, and I was alone at that point. Anyway, she gave me the injection, and then she said to me that I need to visit her in case I feel like I need to call them at any point I feel that the baby's not moving. I need to call them. And they did a stress test on me and then found the baby was moving fine and everything looked fine, so they just let me go. So that was the day. It was my mom's birthday, and we kind of celebrated with my husband. And then that night I slept, and then I don't know if it was my overactive mind thinking, or it was my something happened. I was feeling that the baby was not moving right. So I called up the nurse, and she immediately picked up the phone, and she was like, okay, if you feel like that, why don't you just go to the hospital right now? The doctor is already there doing a surgery, so he should be able to fit you right in, and then we'll see what happens. So the rest of the story is a regular delivery story, because I just went in and the doctor checked me. They immediately put me on monitors to check the baby's heart rate and my heart rate, and they gave me the injection to induce me, and then I waited for some time, and then finally that's a different story. They had to do surgery, and my baby came out well and hearty. What I wanted to kind of share with women out there who are in the same situation as me is that not a lot of women put out the positive stories, because once the situation is moved out, we really don't think much. So maybe that is the reason the number of positive stories around this topic is not around. but rest assured, there are. I mean, the fatal cases are a very rare situations, or maybe it has traumatized the mom so much because they have carried the baby in their womb for like 36 weeks, 37 weeks, and then they've lost it. So maybe they've put it out there. But there are tons of stories of moms, who survived. Like, I realized that I come from a family which has the history, because my cousin sister had the same thing. I found out that my aunt, like my sister's mother, who's my father's cousin sister, also had the situation. Another aunt from the same lineage had the same situation. So I realized that there's something hereditary, and out of all four of us were able to deliver healthy babies. So don't stress it, mom. Having said that, I would advise people that, if you have a history of a liver which has not been functioning well even before pregnancy, please ensure that you keep your doctor updated about it, and if required, just follow up for further test. At the begin. What I understood is, from the beginning, in the starting, because you're pregnant and you're so careful about what you eat, your function test doesn't elevate so quickly. But around the 30 weeks, that's when it starts jumping in. So just make sure you keep that in mind. Keep your doctor informed, and just check your blood levels for liver, like for your liver function on a regular basis, to just keep a tab of things. It's not such a bad thing. There's a medication that comes to kind of take care of the situation, and people, like doctors, know what to do about it. It's just the main issue of the problem is that most times, it's not diagnosed at the right time. That is why it kind of makes it become such a fatal situation. But if it is diagnosed in the right time, it's not such a bad thing. It's a very regular thing. Doctors usually don't pay heed to it, so just make sure you get a good doctor who listens to you, who understands the situation, and takes adequate precautions beforehand. And third thing is, just don't stress it. Just do what you can do. Like, what I realize is, what is going to happen is going to happen. So there's no point stressing it or freaking out. And the fourth thing is, just don't look at the net. Just take out the important informations, like what kind of medication you should look at, what kind of things you should avoid doing, what are the advices there around, all that. But just don't start reading the sad stories. It's just not going to help anyone. Just don't read it. And each case is different, so trust the doctor. And if you don't trust the doctor, change the doctor. But I'm sure the doctors know best. So that is all I wanted to share with you guys regarding my cholestasis of pregnancy story. I'll catch up with you guys with another story soon. Thank you. Bye bye.